Hey guys, welcome back to ExpoHub channel. Now in the UiPath certification series, we are going to attend one more question and understand everything in detail, because you are not going to get the same question. You are going to get a similar question with this topic. So let's understand this topic entirely. So let's read the question first. So the question is, a developer has configured the activity project settings. So what is the topic? Activity project settings is the topic. So do you know what is activity project settings? If not, I'm going to explain you everything in detail. For a UI automation and a click activity in the project shown below. So this is the property of the click activity. If you look at this is the property of the click activity, and this is the project settings. Okay, so you need to read the values of this two panel. For example, if you look at delay before, there is a value called 200, debug value 200, run value. So what are this run value, debug value, what are this? And the question here is, assuming the element is loaded, how much time will pass before the click activity is executed? So it is saying, let's say the element is loaded and this activity is supposed to go and click on some element. Okay, so it is asking how much time will it take before the click activity is executed. So how much time? That means it is asking if there's any kind of a delay before, and these are the options given. Now there is no point in answering this question unless and until you know how the activity project settings works. Reason being, if you do not know this, there could be some kind of other question would appear and you will not be able to answer it, right? So let's first understand activity project settings by going to the studio. Okay, now the first thing, I am right now in the classic design view. In case you would like to replicate, just click on the project settings, hit on the project, hit on the settings, and here in the general tab, disable the modern design. Okay, so I have already disabled it, but you can also be in the modern design, but I want to teach certain aspects of classic design, so I would like you to change it to classic design first. Okay, so once you have done this, and remember, all I am teaching, I would request you to do it along with me. That's where you would learn. All right, so I hope the project settings window is open on your screen. Now look at this. Let's say if you read this, this is something called activity settings. So in the project settings, there is an option called activity settings. So what are this? So you have installed certain packages, right? By default packages and couple of extra packages you might have installed. So for all those packages, you would find all these packages are available over here. Okay, some default ones, some added ones, all the packages will be available inside this one. Let's say I'm going to click on UI Automation Classic. Let's first understand this window. Okay, let us first understand this specific window. Now let's say you have clicked on UI Automation Classic. So what this says applies to all the UI automation activities. If you are making any kind of a settings over here, this get applied to all the UI automation activities. So in your project, whatever number of activities that you have, it gets applied. But there is a condition. What is the condition? Settings changed here take effect at runtime if the corresponding property is left blank in the activity. That means if you are using an activity in the property panel, the settings changed here take effect at runtime if the corresponding property is left blank. If you have not set any property for that activity, that is where it's going to work. Okay, so first of all, let's understand a very simple activity. Okay, so let me close it. Let's do some experiment. So what I need, I will use a click activity, let's say, and I'm going to drag and drop the click activity into my project panel. Okay, now here for the click activity, I want it to, let's say there is a website, let's say ExpoHub channel, and in this channel I want the click activity should click on this videos, this particular option it should click. This is what I wanted to design. Very simple example we will take. So now in the click activity, what I will do, I'll click on indicate on screen and I'm going to select the element. Okay, select the element. So once the element is selected, what happened? Whatever you set in the property panel, that should take effect. Let's say I'm not going to set anything on this property panel. I'm not touching anything on this property panel. What I will do, I will go to the projects tab, click on the settings button. Okay, I'll go to the UI automation classic. Okay, because I am in the classic design. If you're in modern, you can go for UI automation modern. Okay, so let's start with a classic design and understand. Now here, let's say by default, so by default the value should be 200. If you look at, by default it will be 200. Now let's say I want any activity that is going to run. Okay, if any activity you are going to run in the project, it should start. I wanted to give some kind of a delay. So there are two different modes. One is the run mode, the other one is the debug mode. This is very, very important. Okay, there are two different modes. What are those? Run mode, because you will not understand what is the meaning of run value, Rakesh, what is the meaning of debug value, Rakesh, right? That is the question that appears on our mind. So there is two modes are there. One is called run mode and debug mode. So what are these two modes, run mode and debug mode? That means, let's say if I'm going to set, these are in milliseconds. Okay, 200 millisecond, 200 millisecond, 300 milliseconds, this is 30,000 milliseconds. So 1000 millisecond is equal to 1 second, right? 1000 milliseconds is equal to 1 second. So you can understand the fraction of delay that is going to perform if you mention 200. Okay, so 30,000 timeout millisecond is 30,000. So by default you have heard, if any activity is not going to find the UI element, it is going to time out after 30 seconds. That happens by default because in the project settings, here is the value called 30,000. Okay, that is one of the learning. So run value and debug value. So what is run value? So when you run the project, so there are two different options. You can run the project or you can debug it. Run file or run project. If you run it, the project runs, and debug, it runs in the debug mode, right? Here the project runs completely in the production environment, and when I say debug, it runs in the debug mode. So there are two different modes, basically run mode and debug mode. So when you are setting some values, that gets applied how you are going to run the project. Are you running it or are you debugging it? If you are running it, then whatever the values you have applied over here, that gets applied to all the activities in your project panel. Whatever number of activities that you have kept, that gets applied when you run it. If you debug it, then these values get applied. Whatever the values that is set, these values get applied. Now let's test it. Okay, let's do a small testing. So let's say when the click activity is supposed to run, when this activity will run, if I run it in the run mode. Okay, if I do use the run mode instead of debug, I will run. If I run, I want it to start delay before 10,000 milliseconds, that is 10 seconds. So it will wait for 10 seconds and then it will run. Okay, that is the meaning. So I have set it to 10,000. So you can change the value from 200 to 10,000 and click on OK. So let's test it and see how it is working. Okay, now to understand whether there was a delay, because we'll not be able to know, right, if there was really a delay given or not. So I'm using a message box just before that. Okay, and here I'm going to say run starts after you click OK, because message box will give a OK. The moment you click on OK, then it should wait for 10 seconds and should click on the video, right? Because in the project settings we said run the activity only after 10,000 seconds delay before, right? Before it runs, it should delay. Now this get applied even to the message box. Even our message box will start, but we'll not be able to eventually see that. But once we click on OK, we will count it and see if it is taking that delay or not. Okay, same experiment we'll also do in the debug mode. So first let's do a run. Okay, we are running in the run mode. So what is the run value we have given? 10,000 milliseconds. So let's see. Okay, so first thing, I'm waiting for the message box to appear, and from there we will start counting. for 10 seconds. Okay, so the message box has appeared. Now the moment I click on OK, you start counting 1 to 10. So let's click on OK. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, you can see, because my counting may not be accurate, but again you can see after 10 seconds it started clicking on it. Okay, after 10 seconds it started clicking on the video. Now what would happen if I run it in the debug mode? Will it wait for 10 seconds? No, it will not wait for 10 seconds. How many seconds will it wait before it runs? How many seconds will it wait? Whatever the values we have mentioned, so 200 milliseconds, we cannot really check it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some 3000. That means 3000 milliseconds. That means 3 seconds. So if I run it in debug mode, it should click after 3 seconds. Okay, so let's click on OK, apply this, and then this time I'm going to run it in the debug mode. Okay, so I will hit on debug. Now we'll wait for the message box to appear. Okay, I'm keeping the screen in the background and I'm waiting for the message box to appear. Sorry, I should keep it in the playlist. Okay, so it is there in the playlist. It should go to the video now. Okay, so the message box has appeared. Now it should wait only for 3 seconds. So click on OK and start counting. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you see, right? It has moved automatically to video section. It has clicked on the video section. Okay, so you would have understood now how these two functions are working. So run mode and debug mode, this should be pretty clear to you. Okay, run mode, and these are the two values. Everywhere you would see run value, debug value. Run value means when you are running in the run mode. Debug value means this will get applied when you are using the debug mode. Okay, two things get clear. Now the next question that comes into our mind, Rakesh, what if I'm going to apply a value over here? So by default we have set something, right? So here let's say I'm going to put 5000 milliseconds. Now tell me, the project settings will work or the activity settings will work? So there is also a project settings, also there is an activity setting delay before. Now this setting will work or the project settings will work? So remember, always the activity property settings will work. Activity property settings will work. So which will take priority? The activity. The project settings will not work. If you have set something, then the activity property will work. If it is blank, then the project settings will work. So now if I just tell me, if I run it, will it wait for 10 seconds or will it wait for 5 seconds? What I said, only the activity when both are set. Then if the activity is set, then the activity property settings will work. It will neglect the project settings. Okay, so now in the project settings for this particular activity, which is a classic activity. Okay, now for the classic activity, if I run it, I said it should wait for 10 seconds. But here in the property panel, I have mentioned 5000, which is 5 seconds. So if I run it, you will see the activity property will start working. Okay, let the message box appear, then we will start counting. Okay, you do this experiment, that's where you will have. So the message box has appeared, so from here will start counting. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can see exactly at 5 it has moved. Getting it? So this experiment must have given you a clear idea. When the project settings are enabled, if you are adding some values in the activity property panel, then the activity property panel will take priority. This will run, not the project settings. Okay, if you leave it blank, then the project settings will work. This understanding should be pretty clear. Okay, now let me also give you one more example. Okay, this is very important, very important aspect which you may not find it anywhere else. So now let's say I'm using open browser activity. Let's say Okay, I'm using an open browser activity, and here in the open browser activity, if I say www.google.com, okay, what I want to open, I want to open Google page. Now let's go to the project settings. So for each of these activities we can set something. So for example, if I go to UI Automation Classic, okay, and now if you scroll down, there you would find something called browser. Just highlight this. Applies to open browser and attached browser activity. So if you make some kind of a settings in this panel, this get applies to open browser activity and attached browser activity. Clear? So let's do something. So when you run it, so run value and debug value is clear. Run value means running it, debug means debugging it, right? Debug value. Let's say by default it will be in I. By default it will be like this I. Now let's say when I run it, I want it to open in Chrome. But when I debug it, I want it to open in I. Let's say this is the setting I have made. When I run it, it should open in Chrome, but when I debug it, it should open in I. This is the project settings I have done and clicked on OK. But in the activity property panel, now I am not touching anything. I am not touching anything. Okay, the browser type, I am not doing anything to it. I'm just leaving it blank. Now if you leave it blank, what would take effect? The project settings will take effect. So if I run it, how it should open? It should open Chrome. So you will see now the Google page will open in Chrome in few seconds. Okay, you can see the Google page has opened in Chrome browser, right? Let's go back. So this has opened in Chrome browser. This is a Chrome browser. Now if I debug it, if I use the debug option, it should open in IE. Okay, now it is running in the debug mode. Now it should open in IE because it is just following the project settings. Okay, whatever settings you have done, it is just following the project settings. You can see the IE browser has opened. Okay, the IE browser has opened. So let me close it. So you understood, right, how this one is working. Now what would happen? The same question I'm asking you again. What would happen if I go to the property of this activity and make some selection? Let's say okay, let's say I don't have a Firefox. Let's say I want to open an Edge. So neither if you run it or if you run it or if you do a debug, doesn't matter. It will just follow what you have mentioned in the property panel. So here you have mentioned Edge, right? So now if you run or debug, doesn't matter. It is going to open the page in Edge. Look at this. The Edge web browser has appeared. It's taking time to load, but this is the Edge browser. Getting it? So this must be clear. Now let's go back to the question and you should answer now. Now this question should be pretty clear. Now look at this. The question is, assuming the element is loaded, how much time will pass before the click activity is executed in run mode? So how much time will it take before it starts executing? So we should look for the delay before. Okay, and what mode it is running? Very important question. Okay, so do not just go by, just read word by word and understand this. Okay, so what is saying? How much time will pass before the click activity is executed in run mode? So run mode means you should look the run value. So delay before, just a moment, it was still executing. So delay before, we here it is mentioned 200 milliseconds delay before. So it is in the, you have to only look at the run value. And why I am looking at delay before? Because it's saying how much time will pass before, it's saying, right, before. So all these words are very important because that is where you might make a mistake if you don't read word by word. So before, so that means delay before I have to take, and here it is saying run mode, so I am taking the run value, so 200. Okay, and this will only work if there is no value set in the property panel of the activity. So you can see it is blank. That means what will work? This will work. So what is the answer? 200 millisecond is the answer. Getting it? Such an important aspect that you should understand. Now there is also a page on docs.uipath.com. In case you would like to revise anytime or you would like to understand the project settings in more detail, all the pointers that I have covered, if you have watched this video, then if you go through this entire thing, you will be able to understand what is written. For example, the activity settings list shows the tabs. Okay, the production and debug, that means run mode and the debug mode. Okay, for example, the open browser activity contains the browser type property. Just now I have shown that example, right? The browser type property is set to IE. Okay, and this property is left blank. So what would open if you run it? Production mode. Now if you see, the older values were written production mode, but the new UiPath Studio, it says run value. Instead of production value, it says run value. Okay, so the run value during run mode, Firefox will open. During debug mode, IE will open. So go through this page. All the pointers that I've covered, you will find it here and you will have a complete understanding. Okay guys, so thank you so much for watching this. We are going to come up with more such detailed videos, because just by going through this exercise will not help you until unless you understand everything in detail. Because if this question is slightly modified, you will be confused and you may select a wrong answer. But if you know how this one is working, you will always select the right answer if you read the question properly. Before, it will say during the debug mode, or after, it will say will pass after the click activity. So you should be very careful which one to choose. So reading the words is very important, and marking the keywords is also very important. Okay guys, so thank you so much. I hope all the feedbacks or all the suggestions which I'm giving will help you. Thank you so much, and we're going to meet again in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.